Okay. So, I see your name tag, but can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Tom Strand. I'm currently on Colorado Springs City Council at large, which means I cover all 200 square miles of the city. We've got 6 districts, probably 75,000 people in a district, but when you're at large, you kind of represent all the interests, almost a 500,000 people. I think the 2020 census will put Colorado Springs City at about a 500,000. Prior to that, for 5 years, I served on the District 11 School Board. I was the president of the District 11 School Board. It's an elected position also. And then prior to that, had a 30-year Air Force career as a JAG. I'm a lawyer. And started at Peterson Field before it became Peterson Air Force Base in 1975, when probably a lot of your viewers weren't even born.
So you're here today for the Healthy Family Summit. Maybe you can restate that. Right? I'm here at the Healthy Family Summit.
Yeah, I'm here today for the Healthy Family Summit meeting. Delia Busby, somebody I met when I was on the District 11 School Board, invited me to come. I was able to come and listen to the guest speaker that came in from New Jersey, and also to introduce Judge Regina Walters.
And so what was your interest in attending today? Or, Delia called you, but why did you decide to come, and why was this important?
I've always been interested in education. My last job with the Air Force was running the judge advocate lawyer and paralegal school in Montgomery, Alabama. So I ran that for 3 years as sort of the superintendent of one school. And then being 5 years on the District 11 School Board, which when I was there, about 70 buildings, about 30,000 students. I've always been interested in education, and on City Council and the Board of Directors for Utilities, education is something that I focus on, and trying to figure out how city government and utilities can stay engaged with the students, whether they're, in elementary school or secondary school or post-secondary school. So I get involved with utilities, which puts on various kinds of educational programs, primarily aimed at middle school students. I'm always involved, and so I'm here at the summit because I believe in my heart that families are the core of education for their children. And I find sometimes families just defer, and they think that the school system ought to take care of raising their children rather than their direct involvement.
So one of the themes for today, of course, is equity and justice in different ways that the rules don't apply equitably to the population. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, this equity is tough to measure, but I found when I was on the District 11 School Board, I personally had 3 goals. One dealt with the test scores for minority students, in particular, African American, Hispanic. The Asian population seems to do better in test scores, and I wanted to raise those test scores so that they kind of mirrored what we were doing in the Caucasian community. As you know, in Colorado Springs, our African American population is about 10%, 9 to 10%. Our Hispanic population, probably about 20% now. But it is a strongly Caucasian kind of community, where my hometown in Cleveland was about 50% minorities and white, people that lived in the community. So that was one of my goals, to try and decrease the number of suspensions, for students, which always, again, seem to be higher level of our minority students, and our dropout rates. And so those were my goals, and I'm still very, interested in that. And so I'm here today to learn more about, at the city government level, working with the mayor and the other 8 city council members, how can we contribute to, the education process where equity and treatment for everyone is fair and as equal as it can be.
So are you here more for fact-finding gathering, or are you aware of initiatives or programs or activities in the past that have had tangible results?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I'm here to kind of learn what the latest information is and on a fact-finding mission, so that I can go back and share that with my fellow council members.
Okay. I don't have any other prepared questions. Do you have anything from what you've seen so far, or just general activities, or anything you want to say? Or
Yeah, you know what I'd like to say. Our guest speaker, and I think I've got a document here that I want to give him full credit, because it was interesting talking to the guest speaker. It's Mr. Walter Fields, who you're probably going to interview, who's come in from New Jersey. One of my Air Force Base stations was at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey, so we had that connectivity. Was to ensure, and I've known this, but it's kind of reinforced it for me, that, whether it's your children or your grandchildren, you've got to stay engaged in the educational process. And whether they're at a special ed level, and my former wife, who passed away a few years ago, who's a special ed teacher, it was a lot of attention seemed to go into that category as opposed to gifted and talented programs, which you tend to think if a student is gifted and talented, they don't need a whole lot of extra resources poured into them. But I disagree with that. I think it's something we need to do. And specifically with minority populations, I think one of the things that I learned from Walter today was how that is disproportionate in terms of children that are in gifted and talented compared to the majority, to Caucasian students. And it's something that I'm very sensitive to, and I want to work hard as a government official, as somebody in the municipal government, which I think is feet on the ground. I want to make sure I'm a voice to make sure resources are poured in at the state level, at the federal level, and at our local level. So that's kind of my last thing that I picked up from this, is to ensure that not only with special education students that have various needs, certainly students that are gifted have needs and need to be, we, the community, need to be accountable to them.
Right. Are you aware of, it's a really broad topic, but restorative justice, but specifically restorative justice practices in schools or in community programs?
Yeah, I was. As a matter of fact, I was on the Colorado Springs Restorative Justice Board. I did that as a result of being on the District 11 school board, and I wanted to do that to deal with discipline cases that occurred. And so, yeah, I'm aware of restorative justice, and I know that what they want to do is they want to work, especially with minors. I know there's some restorative justice with adults, but especially with juveniles and minors, to ensure that kind of education and training and work with them stops recidivism, which it does to a great degree. Those students, those children that get involved in restorative justice seem very much more to get them on the straight and narrow, of their life, much more rehabilitative for them. And so I'm a big fan. I haven't been on that board since I got on city council, but I'm very sensitive to all the good work that they do, the training that they do, the education that they do with school resource officers, our police officers that are in most of our high schools here in Colorado Springs. But yeah, I'm a huge advocate of restorative justice and where I think it needs to go. I know we've got Senator Pete Lee, who's involved when he was a state representative to try and get more funding for that program, and I'm very supportive of that.
So you think you think it has tangible results that?
Yeah, without question. I think it's measurable. I think it's tangible, and I think I think the resources that we are able to put into it, the dollars and the heartbeats of the people, are paid back multifold.
Is that an opinion that's shared by your council members and your political brethren, or do you think it's?
I don't think so. I think, and because I was so involved with it, 5 or 6 years ago, I don't think city council members or even the mayor talk about it very much at all. And I'd like to, increase their knowledge and dialogue, and information in this area. And, mostly on city council, we deal with public safety issues, police and fire. We deal with issues concerning our infrastructure, what we're doing with our roads and bridges, and we deal with land planning decisions, how we're going to do zoning, how we're going to take care of, other business opportunities and development of property that create jobs. I really would like to make sure, and I will mention this at our next meeting in 2 weeks, that I attended this summit and I will talk about restorative justice in a way that I hope brings a little bit more light to this.
Yeah, because one of the thoughts, of course, is that there's a finite amount of funding. And you mentioned all of the public safety and infrastructure that it has to go to, but one of the thoughts, I would think, restorative justice proponents
Yep.
are saying is like, if you apply funds here, it reduces needs elsewhere. And I just didn't know if you...
I think in local municipal government, we have our general budget is about $308 million a year. It's been increasing because we've been able to have some real successful economic years. And if we're successful in selling more automobiles and more people coming here as tourists, our sales tax obviously is an increased amount. Local government tends to focus on things that I've mentioned, on public safety issues and on taking care of our city. It does not focus on education, which is done at the state level and the federal level. I happen to be on a charter school now. I'm on the board of directors for Global Village Academy, Colorado Springs, which is a language immersion school with German, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. About 450 students. We're up at Pulpit Rock here in town. But so I stay engaged in that. But I think the city here is stayed out of education, whether it's post-secondary at the collegiate level or whether it's elementary, secondary, and secondary school. Whereas cities like Chicago and Los Angeles the local government is directly involved with those. Here in Colorado, local government tends to stay out of education. And we look to our state to deal with that, but we try and stay involved with our state representatives. I'd like to see us not more involved so that we are getting in the way or that we are interfering with it, which I think some other large cities tend to do, but that we're more involved and that we can contribute in different ways, maybe not writing checks, but maybe in ways that can contribute, I think, to the overall support for public education and in the charter education, which is also public.
Got it.
Okay?
I can't think of anything else, and like I said, unless you have any last...
No, I
thoughts or
appreciate very
something
much
you wanna
having the
talk
opportunity, and I appreciate being here and participating with the summit that deals with family and how important they are to the outcome of their children and grandchildren's education.
about?
Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks. Great.